I'm Chris with Clickteam. You may know me as Kisaguri on the forums. I'm the VP of US Operations, and
I'm Anders Regelsen. I'm from Denmark, and I'm the lead programmer of Fusion 3.
So, for those who aren't aware of Clickteam's products, what they do, and the philosophy behind them, can you give our viewers a little bit of some background?
Well, you want to answer? Or you want me to answer?
Well, we're a game development tool. We produce a game development software.
I'd say our philosophy beyond that is we are programming for the rest of us. We're a tool that enables anybody to create games and apps in 2D, and you can pick up the basics in 30 minutes. There's no syntax to worry about, so you can learn to event or program in our tool very, very fast. And once you get a really good understanding of it, you can turn out a professional product a lot faster than other tools or other programming languages may do. That's pretty much what I tell the customers at least.
Can you talk about how Fusion 2.5 supports a number of different platforms?
Well, yeah. We started in version 2, Multimedia Fusion 2. We started with this idea of doing exporters. And I believe what was started with iOS, was it? iOS
Java.
first? Oh, Java, that's right. We did Java, and then we did iOS, and then we did Flash, and then Android. And it just kind of ballooned out from there. As the popularity of mobile technology grew, we knew that there was a need to fill it with these exporters. And then it was improved and refined in 2.5. And then Anders has some really exciting things he's going to do with it in 3. So I hope that answers the question.
So let's talk about Fusion 3. Can you kind of give us the elevator pitch for Fusion 3? If you were to describe this product in 2 minutes or less, what would you say?
It's completely written from scratch. It means that we got rid of all the bugs and problems that we had a difficulty getting rid of from a backwards compatibility perspective. It pretty much means that we can do things that were completely impossible before. In Fusion 2.5 we had the multiple maintenance problem, and that would be if we had an extension that would not be available on all platforms. That problem is completely gone in Fusion 3. So all extensions would work on any platform, and that is pretty much the pitch of Fusion 3, is that it is unified.
I would say it like this. All the previous versions of Fusion were being a child growing up through adolescence and their teenage years, and Fusion 3 is the first adult version of Fusion with adult capabilities and just ready to kind of take on the world. The things that Anders and his team have put together are really going to blow your mind as to what Fusion 3 can do. Things like the ability to actually watch C populate while you're writing your events in your event editor, the ability to output C, the speed improvements and the functions. He's going to show you how. Are you able to show him how to make an object in Fusion, or are we a little far off from that?
Not yet.
No. But what we're talking about is the ability for users to create their own extensions without an SDK, but actually inside of Fusion's event editor. So the reason why I say it's the adult version is because it's the first one that's really going to compete with a lot of other tools that are traditionally marketed for the AAA.
With Fusion 3 we can begin bootstrapping. That means that we can begin building parts that we need within Fusion itself without having to rely on only hard-coded stuff.
In other words, we're going to build parts of Fusion within Fusion. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Will Fusion 3 have any kind of source control or collaboration tools for teams who are not just single people building?
There is a ton of really, really good collaboration tools like GitHub, and we're kind of proud to say that you can put your projects on GitHub and it will just work.
And access through Fusion, that's right. So you can have a team all over the world accessing the same source of project, and
just like source code.
Just like source code in Fusion.
Yeah.
We are very excited about that. I guess the first thing I'd say is, as a user yourself, what would you want to see in audio?
I want to see the ability to edit audio files directly.
So like something like Audacity or something?
Something like Audacity, maybe even a little simpler, just some ability to crop, cut, add effects to audio in Engine so that I don't have to go out, use an external
Right.
program, and then import my assets again.
Well, the idea of tools that was launched with 2.5, are you familiar with that?
No, that one.
So if you go to the main taskbar at the top, there's a tools column, and you can launch individual applications that are in your tools file structure. So a good example of that would be on the Steam version, there's the Steam Workshop tool, and you can launch the Steam Workshop tool while inside Fusion and upload an MFA to Steam or whatever, as an example. So,
Okay.
whereas I believe that there's definitely a need to add more functionality to the eventing of how to play and use sound. Editing sound is, we're probably not going to have the time to write a good editor in Fusion 3. However, one thing that Anders and his team really wanted to accomplish with Fusion 3 is to give you the ability to add functionality. That's what the whole add objects and write them in the event editor. So it is very feasible you could write your own editor, run it within Fusion to edit your own sounds. And you could probably explain it better than I can.
Yeah, well, to begin with, editing sounds is a really complicated thing, so it's just natural that everybody has their own really perfect audio editor for that person. So if your favorite audio editor is Audacity, of course you should be editing your sound in that one. The difference between Fusion 3 and Fusion 2 is that you're used to, in Fusion 2, to import your sounds every time you change them. But in Fusion 3, we have a folder file structure, so you can directly edit your sound directly in that folder. And there's no need to import it. You can just select your sound, edit it, and it will open you up to your default program. And
So what you're saying is I could
edit it, save it.
I could
It's
have the
just
sound
in-game.
in Fusion 3,
Yes.
right? Play it. I don't like the sound. Open up Audacity, edit it, and then run
Save
Fusion 3 again, and it's already save it, and then
Yeah,
it's already
Fusion
changed.
3 has a resource.
Right.
It looks after all your resources. If
Okay.
any of them changes, it will reload them.
That's actually kind of
So you're just going to see your changes from Audacity right in Fusion.
so
And the same goes with, as to extend on what you said.
right. That's
If you, for example, have a really good audio library and you want to make a sound editor for Fusion 3, you could make your own sound editor and share that with people.
could we run it from within Fusion editor environment?
Yes.
Can we talk a bit about, so you talked about how there's this new file structure that is on the development side of when you're using Fusion to develop your game or application.
Yeah.
And Fusion by default has always packaged everything as one executable or had the option to have everything as a spread file structure separately, but it was like an option buried.
Right.
How will building a project for a, say, Windows executable look in Fusion 3?
Right now, I was just talking about the file structure of the equivalent of the MFA file.
Yeah.
Which is just going to be a folder, or it could be a single file. Up to you, but a folder structure is more flexible. You can edit your resources directly.
So you can do either or in Fusion 3?
Either or.
I'm learning stuff.
But the thing is that when you build stuff, build an executable, we're going to give you control over how it's going to be bundled into your executable. If it's going to be a data file, if it's going to be separate files, or if it's going to be embedded into the executable file itself as a exe resource, that is just part of the building process, and we're going to give you power over that.
And with that power, does that mean that games built with Fusion, if they so choose, could support like user-generated content or modifications?
That will be possible, yeah.
So let's talk about animations. What's changed with animations?
In Fusion 2.5, you all remember that if you had some kind of image that you wanted to display for a while and then continue on with the animation, you would just duplicate that single frame
Right.
many times just to insert that pause in the animation. What we're going to do in Fusion 3 is every animation frame has a duration in seconds, so you can control exactly how long that particular image is going to be displayed on your screen.
So if I had a climbing animation, I could make the climb, like when Laura Croft does her thing and she kind of pauses.
Yeah.
You could have one speed, then on the pause on that frame, have it hold, and then speed back up.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, doing GIF animations, or GIF,
Right.
if you will, it kind of has the same control over each animation frame, how long it's going to be displayed on screen before showing the next one.
Okay.
And that is what we're going to do. You can change the animation speed as well, but this time, instead of having this arbitrary number between 0 and 100, we're going to give you a scalar multiplier, which means that it's 1 by default. That is the speed of the animation that you designed. And if you choose, you can change that value to 2, for example, and it will run twice the speed.
Right. But I could also do decimals and have
Yes.
1.5 the speed.
Exactly.
Next question. So let's talk about multi-platform. So developing on OS X, so developing on Windows. What is the philosophy behind developing on multiple platforms with Fusion 3?
The thing is that we have this new cross-platform backend to our entire project. That means that the Fusion 3 will run the same on all the platforms you're gonna run it on, and that means that you can, in theory, export a Windows executable from OS X when you're working from there. It's still something that we have to be 100% sure that it works the same on all platforms. But to begin with, at least you will be able to export for that particular platform that you're currently running on.
So we know it's going to work on the Windows. You'll be able to work in the Fusion environment on Windows and OS X. What about some of the other?
For example, for iPhone, on Mac, we can directly spit out a working and running game
Right.
that runs directly on your iPhone.
Oh, so to the IPA level? Or
Maybe to the IPA. Xcode gives some really fantastic command line tools
Right.
that makes it possible to automate all this. And that makes it really, really easy for you as a developer on Mac to make your game inside Fusion, press play, and see it running directly on your phone.
So with this backend that now powers everything, when a potential customer purchases Fusion 3, do they get access to the different environments? Can they download it for, let's say, they have a MacBook and a Windows PC? Can they mix and match, or is it still going to be very structured in that you buy a Windows license, you buy a Mac license?
That's an excellent question, and quite honestly, we haven't decided. I know that we could bolster our Steam sales because I've had people from Steam ask me, "Can I run this on my Mac?" And you know the standard on Steam, of course, is if it is available on multiple platforms, you are able to run it on multiple platforms with your one purchase. So that's kind of in support of that. Again, being a small company, it comes down to what the support for us to do that is going to be, because we may end up having to have support to handle people who are running on an OS X, and we might have to end up having support who run it on Windows. We don't know yet. I would say, without being able to confirm, I'd say we'd probably, you buy standard, and you can make an executable on Windows, and you can make an executable on OS X. And that's what you'd get for standard, and both you'd be able to work it on either. You download a version for either. It's kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the exporter's options would remain the same.
So it is going to use an exporter model.
Yes. Well, as we mentioned when we talked earlier, it's we've always tried to keep similar pricing and no surprises. There will be definitely an upgrade path for 2.5 users, so they'll be able to get 3 at a much reduced rate for a period of time. And the same will go for the export options that are available at the time. But I mean, we could do it like the other engines, and hey, Five Nights at Freddy's, you made more than $5,000. We want a piece of that action. But that's not our culture. That's not how we've ever been, and I don't think we'll ever be that way. We want to give you the best that we can for the best price that we can, and see what you guys create with it. So as long as we're able to keep food on the table, we'll continue to do it that way. That's what it comes down to. So as far as to answer your question directly about if you buy 3, can you run it on your Mac and on your Windows machine, I'd say that's probably a good chance that you will, but I'm not the decision maker on that.
Do you have a release window?
We will have a release window soon, but I don't have the release window now, which translates to he came to GDC, was all excited about attending, and then I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to pressure you for a release window soon. So he's going to get with his team and figure out what that is, and then we should know shortly. And then based on that, we'll disseminate that knowledge out to our friends and fans and family.